Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
A nationwide search for the next Grand Rapids police chief is underway. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV Live Desk. Joining me is Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington, who, as you may guess, is heavily involved here in the process of selecting that next police chief. Mr. Washington, thank you for taking some time. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, thank you, Luke, for having me. Doing fine, thank you.
So let's hop right in here. Let's start with 2:30 today, November 17th. Where does the search stand?
Well, we're less than a week formally in our formal recruitment efforts. We did a lot of pre-recruitment engagement with local community members, departmental staff, other stakeholders, and officers to find out what are some of the ideal qualities that people were looking for in their next police chief. We hired a search firm, Public Safety Search Consulting, and they are doing a phenomenal job of making sure that we really aim for we hit what we're aiming for. And that's the reason why we're so intentional in having over 26 stakeholder meetings and public meetings that the public could call in general and provide their input on what kind of qualities they want in a police chief.
Tell me about that public sector search and consulting company there. Tell me their role in the recruitment efforts.
Well, they're the experts. They solely specialize on recruiting for law enforcement and public safety positions. And so they have done searches across the country for large and mid-sized cities, and they have relationships with both people who are looking, and we're also depending on them to create awareness of the opportunity for people who may not be searching, who may not be actively looking for a job. Such was the case when I found out about the opportunity in City of Grand Rapids. I wasn't searching for job opportunities, so someone proactively contacted me and made me aware of the opportunity here. So we're looking for them to do that work as well. And it's a big job. And let me publicly thank Chief Payne again for his service to this community. He's been the chief here he's been in the police department for over almost 35 years of service, came out of Grand Valley State, and has done a good job over some very difficult times since his historic appointment as the first African-American police chief here in Grand Rapids.
I want to talk about those public input sessions. There was 26 different stakeholder input sessions and 4 virtual community input forums. Who were some of those groups involved?
Yeah, there were both community-based organizations, some of the people who were both supporters and also critics of the police department. There were business organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations that were part of the conversation, and the public in general was invited to the 4 virtual meetings. And it wasn't quite the outcome that we wanted in terms of the number of people that were calling in. I recall doing this previously when we were searching for Chief Payne, and it seemed to be a lot more people on site at the time, and unfortunately all of this was done primarily virtually because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because people have been so vocal over the past couple of years since especially since the George Floyd murder and the subsequent riots that we had, civil unrest that we had here in Grand Rapids. We've had so much conversation about what this police department is and what it should be, the concerns around crime. You know, we've had an unprecedented 2020 with 38 homicides. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback, particularly when the Chief Payne, created his strategic plan for the department. And that also informed some of the qualities for the search.
So tell me some of the big takeaways from that. You said the turnout wasn't exactly what you thought it would be. What were some big takeaways, just I guess in general?
I think in general, people want a chief that certainly focuses on keeping the community safe and prevents crime. I think we heard a lot of emphasis on the need to focus on crime prevention and having proactive policing to help neighbors and community members. You have a certain amount of people who are calling for the de-escalation and the use of force, which the chief has did in terms of his reform efforts. So someone to be reform-minded, to be community engaged, to create better relationships with all community members, and to be fair in terms of holding those accountable that violate the law, and to also be fair in terms of making sure that the officers in the department are doing their job as they were sworn to do and as directed to do by the chief, and doing it in a way that promotes respect and civility among our community.
So going into those input meetings, you have your list of what you're already kind of looking for. What was something that maybe a member of the community had mentioned to you that was like, oh, this is actually a great point. How can we implement this in our search?
Well, I think you always learn from interactions with other people, and maybe it's not learning anything new, but you learn what to place emphasis on. And so I think, being a chief that's mindful of how policing impacts young people and engaging our youth in different ways than perhaps in the past, because there are opportunities that we've had in the past where the department could be more involved and have more presence in schools, and now with the pandemic, there's some of that happens, but not on the basis that it happens before. And so how can we be more proactive in helping to inform our youth? How can we partner more with mental health providers and behavioral health providers, because there are a lot of calls that officers get deployed to that may not necessarily require presence of a sworn police officer. And so, that was the emphasis of making sure that there are more services that will help community members and may not necessarily require the enforcement of the law, particularly when there are issues regarding chemical dependency, mental behavioral health. So those are things that will reinforce to ensure that we have someone that is innovative, cutting edge, has seen these issues in cities that are a similar size and experience as Grand Rapids.
You mentioned, seeing issues in previous places where they may have been. What kind of experience are you looking for, or is this recruitment, looking for in terms of, maybe 2 years as a chief or 4 years as a chief, or if they were just in the department a long time, like Chief Payne, right, something like that, moving up?
Right. Well, you're right. I mean, the ideal candidate can come from external to the organization and city or community, or internal like Chief Payne. I think someone who is, in this day and time, you have to be culturally competent, both in terms of making sure that the workforce, the department has the level of understanding of the needs of the community, and also to do your best to diversify the ranks of law enforcement. I mean, this has been very challenging times over the past couple of years for law enforcement to function, because as much as they've been celebrated by some, they've been critiqued very harshly by others. And what we're finding is that the talent pool, the people who want to enter into the profession now, has diminished because of some of the harsh realities. And so we need a chief that is seen as a leader in this community, and that will motivate both the troops within the department, but also the community, inspire the community to have confidence in the department, and inspire people to want to serve in this very important and noble profession. We want someone that is a principal leader, an effective communicator, that certainly can communicate with all the digital platforms and social media with the community, but also in moments of crisis that can let the community know what is going on and what will be done, and how the police department will be able to help to bring about safety in our community.
It's noted that the finalists in the selection process, which is down the line a little bit here, will be interviewed by, quote, several panels which will provide critical feedback to City Manager Mark Washington. Who are some of those members of these panels?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of time because the application process doesn't end until the earlier part of December. There'll be vetting by the consultant, screening, background checks, and so it probably won't be at that point until later in the month of January or so, around that time. And so that those that will participate in that is to be determined, and it'll likely be some of the community-based organizations, community leaders, business members from the business community, members from the police department, members from the labor unions will be part of that process. Other department directors that support public safety, fire department, as well as other leaders in our community. It will be very comprehensive in terms of the profile, and ultimately, unlike many of the other positions that we hire in the city, the entire community will get a chance to see the finalists, the top finalists. And there will be some type of community forum where any member of the community can come and ask questions of the finalists and have them respond to their questions. So it is a big job. It's a large department, over 400 employees total, and a $56 million budget. And we want to make sure we get it right the first time, and so we'll be asking for quite a bit of community participation.
Who will you report that feedback to then? Once all that feedback from community members and businesses, faith-based leaders, things along those lines come back to you, then where do you go?
Then after that, then I take all that in consideration and announce an appointment. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's ultimately informing the decision that I'll make, because the chief is by charter, he's a direct report to the city manager, and so I will let the community know. Of course, I'll let the city commission know the decision, right. But yeah, everyone will be able to be informed of our next leader in Grand Rapids. This is a very important decision, as you are well aware of, and one that I don't take lightly. So that's why we're being so deliberate and intentional about it, and I appreciate Chief Payne for giving us the opportunity to do it without the urgency of now. He
Right.
could have announced his retirement and within 2 weeks, a month from the date, and been gone. But he's been very supportive in making sure that there's a good handoff and healthy transition.
Can you tell the public when you are looking to have this position filled officially?
Well, I would like to have had it filled yesterday.
Yeah.
No, again, it's gonna depend on the candidate. If like Chief Payne, internal appointment, I announce it 1 week. The next pay period, we can have him start. He doesn't have to relocate. But if it's not an internal candidate, we have to work with the context of their own professional issues, where they're located, family issues, and work on transition. But ideally, the spring of next year is when certainly I'd like to have it announced, and then we'll work with whoever the new chief is on make sure they relocate to the city if they're not already here.
And then the application deadline as well.
Yeah, application deadline. The first reviewing is December the 10th. And so please, if you know candidates and both internal and external to our community, make them aware of it. And, Grand Rapids has just so much to offer as a city with an excellent quality of life. I look at the policing opportunities across the country in some of the large metropolitan areas, and all are good places to live. There's some tremendous communities, whether it's down southeast in Atlanta or Boston or Los Angeles, Chicago, etc., all great communities. But to me, what distinguishes our city from those communities is that you really have an opportunity to make a measurable difference in your career as the top law enforcement officer. Where in some cities that are wrestling with, over 600 homicides, right. Or New York over 1,000 homicides. I mean, those are big, important issues, but it will take a significant amount of time to see the impact. And so if there's somebody who really wants to be results driven and see some significant outcomes in helping the community, this is the perfect place to do it, because comparatively, our quality of life is comparable, but the issues that affect public safety are not. And so I'm hoping someone will be ready to step up to the challenge.
Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington, sir, I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you'd like to add here?
No, I really appreciate you helping us get the word out, and I'm really looking forward to even Wood TV in the process as we get further down. Hopefully you'll be able to make the public even more aware about the finalists, and maybe a creative opportunity to have more broadcast awareness of their engagement with the community when that time comes.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Folks, this has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster. The link attached to this will take you over to the website. We have some more information over there on the recruitment process for a new chief here for GRPD. Have a great afternoon, folks. Stay dry out there. We'll see you around.
Thank you.